Right, next is a more complex company, and that's called RCL Foods. The company, of course, was Rainbow Chicken Limited. That's where the RCL comes from. And it was reconditioned, re-prepared, merged, and did a substantial transaction when it acquired the assets of a company called Foodcorp, which was unlisted. They've got all sorts of things like Omar rusks and so on and so forth. It has also done a subsequent deal to acquire a sugar producer, and the connection here was Remgro. Because Remgro, their controlling shareholder, owned various food businesses, and it sort of like decided to put them all together. So Remgro, I think, has got about 80% of the shares in the industry in this company. Market cap substantial, 12.5 billion rand. Price earnings ratio 20.46. Dividend yield of 2.23. The problem, however, is chicken and sugar are not two high points in the food industry.
No, and that's the majority of the earnings. The big sort of ray of light they have here is the fact that they deliver quite a lot of chicken to the fast food industry, to KFC and Nando's, where they initially only delivered about, they say, sort of 4 to 6 out of 100 to those companies. They now sort of nearly supply 46% of that number to.
So what happened?
Did
those guys just narrow their suppliers, or they did some special deal?
I probably suppose there was a lot of deal making in that, but the big thing there is that it's a high margin business for them. So it's much easier for them to sort of operate there with long-standing contracts and supply contracts that they have with these companies. The rest of the things, like you say, it's very difficult. They have a bit of a speciality sort of logistics division when it comes to Vector, where they deliver the.
That was part of AVI before, and they brought that in.
Exactly. So it's the cold transport and frozen and cold foods to many retailers within South Africa and Southern Africa.
Which we like that food services angle, because again that feeds well into the distribution to people more being outbound, eating out of home.
And like you say, it's actually been it's diversified away from the days where it was only Rainbow Chickens.
Yes.
Which is probably a rare
Although, the Rainbow Chicken business grew. I remember when I was a child, Rainbow was owned by the Methven family, and that was a brilliant business. Whenever the market got tough, he curtailed production, and then he would bring it back on again. When Remgro took it over and he died, it all became very corporatized. And they had a good run at it, but now there's a lot of pressure in that space. We haven't talked about drought conditions, but that has affected the sugar production for TSB very badly.
It has. So it's not looking very positive.
The number of shares in issue, though, rose substantially through all these transactions and the acquisition of Foodcorp and then the de-gearing. So it was quite tough to know what sort of earnings they would distribute. But that share chart reflects that earnings haven't really set the market's mind racing, has it? So,
no, it hasn't. And I think when you consider portfolios in South Africa, most portfolios have a small holding or some holding of Remgro, which then gives you automatic sort of exposure to RCL. So
and their other food interests, which broadens the base a little bit.
It makes it a little bit more difficult for me to argue investment into this company.
Yeah, it has been pretty stable, though, in terms of its corporate steerage.
It has.
And what Remgro have done is that they took the Foodcorp business, which was very aggressively geared by those private equity cowboys that owned it, and then paid off all of that debt, and they kind of Remgroized it. In other words, they sort of calmed it down, stabilized its balance sheet. The management under Miles Daly has been very consistent and thorough. So it feels like something ought to start happening here. But I guess sugar, chicken, tough times.
Exactly. I think there's so many sort of different and difficult components in this argument that it's not, the bright side's probably a smaller chance than
Who knows? Maybe later.
Than not the bright side.
Right.